Welcome to Wild Worcestershire, the podcast from Worcestershire Wildlife Trust. Each episode will explore the wild corners of our county. From ancient woodlands to whispering wetlands, along the way we'll meet the people working to protect these places and uncover the hidden lives of the wildlife that calls them home. This is a space for stories, for connection and for celebrating nature right on our doorstep. So come with us and discover the wild side of Worcestershire. Hello and welcome to this episode of Wild Worcestershire, the very first episode in fact, and thank you for joining us. My name is Lee Robinson and I will be your host for this series of podcasts, and today you find me at Green Farm, which is just outside of Worcester, and it's one of the Trust's newest reserves. And I'm here to meet Dom and Laura, who are going to take me on a tour of Green Farm, and we're going to have a discussion about connectivity.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm engagement officer for the Green Farm project. So I've been working with local community around the reserve. So that's Martley, Lower Broadheath, Hallow and Grimbley and Holt.
Hi, I'm Dominique. I'm the Western Reserves Officer for the Wildlife Trust, and I manage about 12 different nature reserves, including Monkwood and Green Farm, which we are here today.
So do you want to tell me about this field in particular, Long Meadow?
Yeah, it's called Long Meadow very aptly. It is very long, it's fairly narrow, and it's one of the best hay meadows on site, particularly at the north end. So you can see, and it's really nicely demonstrated right now actually, because the hay's just been taken here at the end of July, and you can see the ridge and furrow nature of this meadow, which basically means that it's been a meadow for a very long time. It has seen ploughing in its past, but not for hundreds of years. So that means the hay meadow community of plants and butterflies and things has been able to establish and develop, and all those complex relationships have been able to kind of get going. And so we see at this north end some really nice species for Worcestershire, like adder's tongue fern, like black knapweed, bird's-foot trefoil, a lot of the hay meadow species that you'd expect to see in a neutral grassland, which is what Worcestershire is famed for. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. I'm not a botanist. No. I should start there. I'm a birder, not a botanist. I can tell you that there are some swallows overhead, but I don't know what we're looking at our feet, especially when it's just been cut. So the north part of Long Meadow is really, really nice. The rest of Long Meadow, as it stretches further south, is also decent. It's not quite as species rich as the north end, so what we're hoping to do over time is to just gently encourage those species to spread their seed a little bit further south, so we can get that really lovely hay meadow right the way across this field.
And so just thinking about hedgerows here, you're saying about connectivity. So obviously this is a critical part of the infrastructure, if you like, of what you're going to be doing over the next few years.
Yeah, that's right. This particular hedgerow is one of the most important features on site. We think, looking at old maps and talking to the local history group, that this particular hedge has been a hedge for nigh on 1,000 years. It doesn't mean that the plants are still, they're not 1,000 years old, but it's been a hedgerow for that length of time. So it just shows through the diversity of species in the hedge, and the fact that there are things like bluebells and wood anemones in the base of the hedge, all pointing towards a wooded habitat for centuries. And so we're really keen to manage it really sensitively and in the best possible way for wildlife. And over the last couple of years we've started laying sections of this hedge, and the bit we're walking past now, that was laid 2 years ago, and you can see that it's really kind of rejuvenated by that. In the spring there was loads of flowers, from sort of dog rose to bramble and hawthorn, and at this time of year that all those fruits are starting to develop as well. So it's going to be amazing for species like hazel dormice, which rely on hedges both for connectivity but also for foraging opportunities. And we know in this section of hedge particularly, we've done some bird surveys, sort of before and after the laying. And before we laid it, we didn't find any bird species in here that were using it for breeding. And when we repeated those surveys this year, so that's a year and a half after hedge laying, we found 16 different birds in here, some of them singing, some of them paired up. So it's amazing to think that it's now a breeding bird sort of nesting opportunity just through doing that one little bit of management. So we laid the next section down the year after, and then we're due to lay another section this year. So trying to manage it on rotation so that there's always a section of hedge that benefits a different type of species. And these hedges, as you say, form the backbone of the connectivity across the landscape. So Monkwood, we know, used to be part of the Wye Forest, which is now still a sizable forest, but really just shrunk to the northern part of Worcestershire now, and it's quite a long way from Monkwood. But it was once all woodland. And so what we're hoping to do here is now just try and push those boundaries of Monkwood out a little bit more. And there's fragments of woodland within the landscape that aren't that far away, and they're still connected by bits of hedgerow. But we've been trying to plant new hedgerows in those gaps and encourage scrub corridors and things like that to really connect the dots. And by doing that, species like hazel dormice, which need sort of continuous woodland habitats to move around because they sort of bounce from branches to branches in the tops of the trees. They don't like coming down to ground because that's when they're really vulnerable to predation. So if you can have continuous wooded habitats linking really nice bits of sort of flower-rich sort of woodland or hedgerows, then that will be ideal for dormice. And that's one of our key species at Monkwood. So we were really, really keen to improve landscape connectivity for hazel dormice. But then on the flip side, we've got some really nice species like wood white butterflies in Monkwood as well, and they like open space. So we have open space versus wooded habitats. But the great thing is here at Green Farm, we've got 24 hectares, 60 acres to play with. So we've been able to sort of weave together a plan that takes into account the needs of all these different species so that we can have our hedgerows extending out for dormice, but then alongside sort of grassy, nectar-rich corridors which wood whites can then fly along. So it's just trying to formulate a little plan that's as good for as many species as possible, and then nature can sort of make it its own and run with it and do whatever it likes with it, because ultimately that's what will happen. We can kind of kickstart the process and then we'll sit back and see where it goes.
Okay, brilliant. And so the hedge laying, is that obviously part of the volunteers? Have they been engaged in that aspect of it now? It's been contractors.
That's been contractors, yeah. I think okay. I was really keen that with such an ancient hedge, I didn't want to muck it up, and that's not on the volunteers. That's just because I don't really have much experience of hedge laying. So yeah, we've been working with a local contractor who happens to be very good at hedge laying to do this. So yeah, but we have run some hedge laying sessions for our volunteers. There are quite a lot of hedges on site, so it's not just this ancient hedge. So they've been able to play at other bits, but they've largely got involved with the planting rather than the laying. The laying. Mm-hmm. Just looking at it here, it's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
It's an amazing piece of work. Yeah, it is.
And apparently this is the scruffy side. This is the kind of working side. I think it's so attractive.
It's beautiful. It really is.
And this is the Midland style of hedge laying. So it's a kind of double twisted coil of hazel round the top, and with all those stakes in there just to give it all a bit of support and structure.
Yeah, what they do is they chop sort of sections over and then lean them over. Yeah, and then allow it to bush back up again.
Yeah. And it is responding really, really well. And what we've tried to do, this hedge doesn't have any big in-hedge trees, and so we've tried to find kind of really nice saplings. So we've got a couple of oak saplings here now. And we've just left them, so they haven't been part of the hedge laying, and those will be our future trees in hedges. And so you can see how tall they are now. That's where this hedge was before it was laid. So it had been left for maybe 2 or 3 years to get nice and beefy, and then we've lain it all at a 45-degree angle.
Just sticking it up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the fact that we're now seeing many more nesting birds using this habitat, I think, is just showing us exactly that. It's now nice and thick, nice and dense, and they feel protected enough to have a nest in there.
Yeah. Cool, okay.
Yeah, so this field is, I think it's just under 5 hectares, so it's quite a chunky field. And one thing we really wanted to integrate into the project was wood pasture. This was a land use that was really prevalent around Monkwood sort of 200-300 years ago. We know that from the records. And nowadays we don't really find very much of that left. So we were really keen to put it back into the landscape and in effect turn the clock back sort of 200 or 300 years. So we've planted 40 trees in here, which is nothing in a sort of 5-hectare field. But that means that every tree has as much sunlight and as much sort of nutrient intake as it can possibly want, because it doesn't have any neighbours. So all these trees that we've planted, and they're species like oak, small leaf lime, sweet chestnut and some field maple, all of these can grow as big as they want and be veteran trees in sort of 300, 400, 500 years time. This lower section we've left as hay meadow underneath the big trees, and this was why it was such a prevalent land use around here, because if you're a single landowner, being able to get a little bit of timber from your big trees but also being able to graze your livestock underneath is so useful. If you've only got a couple of fields to play with, they need to kind of double up and be multi-purpose. So this particular section will still be grazed in the autumn by our sheep, but then the upper part of the field is a bit more experimental. So that one I'd really love to be a sort of version of Worcestershire savannah. So if you can picture sort of African savannah, big acacia trees, lots of thorny scrub and then lots of long grasses, I'd like to replicate that here. So rather than acacia trees we have our oaks and limes, rather than thorny scrub we have our version of thorny scrub, which is blackthorn, hawthorn, lots of dog rose, lots of bramble, and then lots and lots of long grasses and some flowers within that. And what I'm hoping from that is to create a really diverse landscape, which should have loads of different niches, so loads of different wildlife should be able to find a home within that. And to do that, it's very simple. We just kind of lock the gate and we don't have any grazing in there, we don't have any cutting in there for maybe 10 years. And we just keep monitoring and we just see how that develops. So very much let the scrub come in naturally, which it will do through natural processes like suckering and layering, and then things like jays planting acorns. And we'll just keep an eye on it and see what direction it's headed. So hopefully we'll have 2 slightly different types of wood pasture here, and then we can do a little comparison to see the impact that the different types of management are having on wildlife. And it should become a really diverse and kind of buzzing landscape. So this is our biggest woodland creation field to our right. And across all of our woodland creation areas there are 3,850 trees, and those trees are all native varieties. They are designed to kind of emulate what we find naturally in Monkwood. So Monkwood is very much sort of oak woodland with ash and field maple and wild service, and then underneath all sorts of scrub species. And Monkwood has big open woodland areas, but then also quite dense canopy, sort of closed canopy areas as well, and then lots of big glades and sort of nectar-rich, flower-filled open spaces that are nice and sunny. So we really wanted to create that in here, and we did that just by picking slightly different species mixes for different corners of the new woodland, and different planting densities as well. So it sounds really technical, but it's not really. It's just where you want a slightly more closed canopy, shady woodland to develop, you just plant them slightly closer together. Yeah. And where you want an open woodland to develop, you choose scrubby species that are slightly more low growing and spread them further apart. So there's not much to it really, and a lot of this was planted by our school groups and contractors and volunteers.
Okay, so talking about school groups, do you want to Tell us a little bit about the activities that the groups have been up to.
Yeah, so I mean, like Dom just mentioned, lots of groups were involved in tree planting here. Some of those groups were school groups, so we've worked really closely with 4 of the local primary schools. And over the course of a couple of winters, they've been out to come and help plant the trees, but also the hedgerows. I know that the Scouts recall a very muddy planting experience, which I think they enjoyed thoroughly. But yeah, it's like people have come out in all weathers and helped us to get the trees in the ground. And yeah, as I mentioned, we've also worked with Scouts and Beavers and just local community volunteers. So we were just really keen for anyone who wanted to be able to come out and plant trees with us, because I think it's really important that when people are like involved in the planting here, that they feel like a real sense of like pride and ownership of the reserve. And yeah, I think that was a really key part of the project, really, to involve people in the local community.
I'm amazed by the number of grasshoppers
that
I'm seeing jumping in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that many. There's hundreds.
It's really nice to kind of have the difference between the two halves of Green Farm, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now that the hay meadows have been cut, it's great to still have so many areas of long grass on the woodland creation side. As you say, all these grasshoppers are here now, and obviously they wouldn't be if it was cut. So yeah, it's great to still provide a home for them.
Yeah, this is amazing. I've never seen so many grasshoppers. I mean, just literally walking along here, there are hundreds just jumping out of the grass in front of us as we walk.
Yeah.
Everything's a bit yellow at the moment, isn't it? It's just very dry.
Yeah.
We are in a drought situation, but I mean, you can actually hear the grasshoppers. I don't know whether my mic's going to pick this up, but there are quite a few clicking away just to the right-hand side. It does feel, even though it looks dry and dead, there's a lot of life going on here. I've noticed a couple more butterflies. I keep scanning. So yeah, it's lovely. So we're heading that way now.
Yeah, we're going to head down there and then come back on ourselves to get onto that side of this field. And there's no cut through across the fencing just yet.
So this field here, has that got ridge and furrow in it as well? Because it does seem to undulate a little bit.
Yeah, a tiny bit. What we found with this field is that on the maps from the 1800s, this field used to be cut into 2. So the lower part was an orchard and the upper part was woodland. Yeah. So again, we're just kind of turning the clock back. I'm not quite sure what kind of orchard it used to be. I know in more recent times it was a pear orchard, but we've restocked it with all sorts of different things, all of them Worcestershire heritage varieties of fruits. And the plan at the moment is probably not to harvest them and to just leave them for overwintering birds like fieldfares, redwings, starlings, that kind of thing. But it's there in the future should we wish to kind of use it as a food source. There's quite a lot going into agroforestry at the moment where you're planting trees that will benefit not only the wildlife but also potentially your human population, so planting things like walnut as an example. So that's potentially something that we could do here.
Yeah, cool.
On all of our reserves, we don't have that equipment ourselves, so we always look to work with a local landowner, a local farmer, and if it's to their benefit as well, then that's great. So yeah, at the moment they do the hay cuts.
And so the hay cuts, as you said, you sort of alluded to earlier, are really quite important then.
Yeah.
For the conservation of the landscape.
Yeah, they are. It's a traditional way of managing hay meadows, to take a cut later in the summer and then do a little bit of grazing in the autumn. And that is really to kind of keep the flowers coming back. We don't want the grasses to become too dominant. So the idea of a cut followed by a graze is to just keep it in that balance. And we want those open habitats here. We're going to have plenty of wooded habitats. And we also want to balance that with some open, sort of sunny, flower-rich habitats. So yes, we will keep on doing a cut and graze as long as we want to kind of have those hay meadow areas.
So when the grazing aspect, is it? You say the flock actually belongs to the trust, and we use the trust move the the flock around? Are they to different places or?
No, so we actually use a local farmer for that as well. There are other trusts, I think, that have a flying flock, as they call them, but we don't just yet. So we work again with local farmers for animals as well as hay cutting. So that's a different farmer I work with, and they are, I think, building up their flock of British native breeds. So they started grazing here last year. And I think the ewes really enjoyed it. I kept getting texts saying, "Oh, the sheep are loving it at Green Farm," and I was, "Oh, great!" So there are loads of different breeds within that flock. And that's kind of what we hope to do. Really, it's great to be able to work with the local community, not just in terms of tree planting and things on site, but also the wider community. How can we work with other landowners who often have different bits of equipment and different skills, so that we can kind of borrow them if we need a new water supply being installed, for example, or some new fencing work. Quite often we reach out into the farming community for that. So if we already have some of those inroads through our grazing and hay cutting, then that's just really useful. And of course they get the benefit of really nice kind of flower rich hay or grass for their flock as well.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. So this is obviously the orchard, so...
we're in the orchard now, which was planted by a group called Wild Goose Rural Training. They were involved from the project from the very start, and they are a care farm and training centre for young people and adults. They're just up the road at Top Barn, so literally like 6 minutes away. And they have their own reserve, but somehow have the time and the energy to have wanted to come and help us on our reserve, which is absolutely brilliant. So not only have they planted the orchard trees here, they also helped us with some of the tree planting, and throughout winter came and also did some coppicing. I think what's really nice about our work with Wild Goose is that, it's been, I think, and I'm sure they would agree, mutually beneficial in that they've come and helped us on our reserve, but we've also been able to provide them with some training opportunities. So one of the things we did with them was hurdle making training, and you can sort of see that put into action here in the orchard, where some of the trees have wire mesh protection, but some of them are protected by these really lovely hazel hurdles, which were made by some of the participants of Wild Goose. And what's really nice is the materials used for those hurdles was made using hazel that was coppiced in Monkwood. So really nice sort of connectivity there with using products that were literally harvested a few hundred metres away, and putting them back in here into the reserve. It's just been really wonderful to see the participants returning and really getting to know Monkwood. I reckon some of them probably know Monkwood and Green Farm better than I do at this point, and also the enthusiasm to come back. I think this project's been funded for 2 years, but we really want community groups like Wild Goose to come back beyond the end of the project, and to really feel like this is a reserve that they can continue to work out and utilise as a learning resource for their participants. We're sort of at one of the hazel hurdles now, and obviously wish you could see it, because it's just really beautiful, much nicer than using wire mesh. So this was all made by Wild Goose students, and
it's lovely the way it's been woven together. I mean, that is stunning, and you can see the strength in it as well.
Yeah,
I think I do much prefer that to wire mesh, I have to say.
And obviously it won't last forever, but that's a good thing. Like, it will naturally degrade over time, but by the time it has, the tree will be large enough to sort of not be vulnerable to animals like rubbing on it, and sort of while it's a young sapling, it will be protected by the hurdle, and this hurdle will remain here and go back into the ground, so there'll be no sort of plastic and wire to pick up at the end of the day, which is really nice.
A sustainable option, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
No, I like that. So the orchard then, the trees that we've got here, what sort of trees have we got planted?
Yeah, so we have 16 apples, and those are Worcestershire heritage varieties. I try to pick the varieties that were sort of produced, I suppose, as close to where we are as possible. So there are quite a few that are called Chatley's Kernel. They originated in Ombersley, which really isn't very far from here. So there's about 16 apples, and then 15 Black Worcester pears, and 2 different types of Worcestershire plum. So really trying to get all sorts in there, and that should have staggered flowering times in the spring to provide a nice nectar window for early pollinators like bumblebees, and then all those different types of fruit in the autumn for small mammals and for overwintering birds.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And despite the hot weather, they are doing well.
Yeah.
It's been munched a bit, so that's always a good sign.
The leaves are green though, that's all that.
Yeah. So these ones actually went in January 2024. Yeah, 2024. So they've been in a couple of, a year and a half now, and they were about 2 years old when they went in, so reasonably established.
Yeah.
I think at the moment 100% success rate with these ones. I noticed a couple that we planted this year are not looking so good, but that's to be expected when we've had such a hot, dry summer. And we'll see if they come back, and if not, we'll plant a new one. But yeah, these apples seem to be really resilient. I mean, apples are part of the rose family, which are incredibly hardy plants, so you'd hope that they would be. But yeah, it's really nice to see, and it's great to see all these long grasses as well. So before we created this orchard, this was another hay meadow, so this would have been cut at this time of year. And we can see there's some bird's-foot trefoil, there's St John's wort, there's creeping thistle, there's lots of nectar sources still here. And then the long grasses in themselves are doing a really important job. So I know when wild goose were planting the pear and plum trees in January of this year, they were spotting birds like stonechat, which are winter visitors to Worcestershire. They can breed here, but they tend to just come through in the autumn and winter. And this particular male stonechat was perched up high on a long grass that had been left long over winter. Without that kind of habitat, which wasn't present here before we took on Green Farm, that bird species wouldn't be here. So it's just really nice, really simple things like just not cutting have given us a new species record for Monkwood and Green Farm.
Okay, brilliant. Oh yeah, there we go. I see what you mean about the trefoil. Yeah, it's a bit of a fave of the burnet, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and common blues as well.
Yeah.
Oh, talk of the devil.
Talk of the devil. There's one there.
And the yarrow's always nice as well.
It's looking really good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would look at this and think, "Oh, tussocky grass. Oh, creeping thistle. That's no good." But it's really good.
No, it is good.
Jumping out the way as we're.
It is. It's absolutely alive.
Yeah.
That one's not done very well.
That one's not done so well. No, so that one hasn't done so well. So I think that's.
That looks like it's dried out.
Yeah. Although having said that, at the base there's green leaves.
Okay, so.
Yeah. So.
Protected from the glare of the sun, perhaps.
Yeah, potentially. So when we are due to build a livestock tree guard around this one in a couple of months' time, and by that stage our new water supply will have been switched on, and we're right next to one of the troughs here. So whilst we build it a timber guard, if we haven't already had some significant rain, we could maybe give it a bucket full of water just to try and help it on its way, which is easier to do with sort of 40 trees rather than thousands of trees.
Yeah.
And yeah, not always something that you want to do, because you want to encourage them to be resilient and hardy, but equally you also want to encourage them to live. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and it's really rare that we get conditions like we have done this summer, and we just have to learn from it, I think.
Yeah, I think sadly it's going to be one of those things where it's going to continue, isn't it? We're going to start seeing more and more of that.
Yeah.
And we've got to adapt, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And projects like this, where we can really measure the impact of what we've done and monitor the impact of the weather on our planting, we can start to learn some really interesting things. So, for example, here in our woodland areas, looking at the species that are now doing the best after months of dry, hot weather, it's species like wild cherry, rowan and field maple. So going forwards, maybe we'll have more of those species in our planting mixes, because they seem to be able to cope really well with a hot, dry summer.
Yeah, so it's adapting to climate change, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, very much so.
It is absolutely alive here. There's so many insects bouncing around in front, and butterflies just shot over that way.
Yeah.
Look at this. This grass is doing well.
Yeah. I don't know. We go back to, I'm not a botanist, so I'm not sure what kind of grass that is, but it's obviously one of the taller varieties. There's lots of meadow bent and things in here which are quite a lot shorter. But it's also really nice to see this natural regeneration happening before our eyes. So these are all baby blackthorns that we haven't planted, and they are maybe 5 metres plus from their parent plants, and through the process of suckering underground they've just started to creep into the orchard, and this is exactly what I want from both the orchard and the wood pasture, having these scrubby pockets that will be so good for breeding birds. If we are ever able to get things like nightingale back here, kind of scrub interfaces with open grassland next to them, those kind of areas are really, really good.
Yeah.
So we like this. This is great.
I'm not a fan of blackthorn.
No, I get that quite a lot.
Being a cyclist, I'm definitely not a fan of blackthorn.
Nice from afar.
Yeah, it's not nice when you have
I noticed when we were at the bench at the top, there was a piece of blackthorn coming up.
Yeah.
Where they've disturbed the ground, I think, to put the legs of the bench in.
Yeah.
So whether that's sort of woken it up and it's decided actually it's time to make an appearance.
Yeah.
Because that happens quite a lot, doesn't it? You get that, you disturb the ground and then all of a sudden things suddenly decide to shoot up.
Yeah.
There's lots of this as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Was that mallow?
That is greater willow herb.
Willow herb.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Slightly smaller and slightly darker pink flower to the mallows. And willow herbs are often a sign of disturbed ground as well.
Yeah.
Particularly rosebow willow herb, otherwise known as the fireweed.
Right.
But yeah, this one is greater willow herb, so slightly different, but still a nice one to have.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is looking good. You can see there's a lot going on here. You know, although it's all a bit yellow at the moment because of the drought, you can see that there are lots of different species.
Yeah, I think it's just looking more like a nature reserve. It's a bit scruffy around the edges. It's a little bit diverse. Nothing's in rows. Everything's a little bit wayward. But it, as you say, it's just alive.
It's making its own home as well, isn't it? It's not, you're not having to force the issue. It's just happening.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, it shows you're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, I think what we've learned through this is that quite often, nature doesn't need anything, but just maybe back off a little bit, and then it knows what to do. It knows where is best to thrive, which plants are best in which places, and sometimes all it needs is just the human letting go of the reins.
Just think about connectivity. I would say that through there is a corridor.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Something quite large going through there. Because I'm just also looking at the way some of the grasses and things are going, and whether I think something is fox badger.
Yeah, quite possibly. So we know there are badgers foraging on site, and I've seen foxes in Longmeadow. I think it was last summer. I saw what I assume was the vixen, and then a couple of cubs playing just out in the meadow. That was really nice. So we know there are populations near.
System then, is it?
Yeah. So this is the new water supply, much anticipated.
It's got water in it.
Yay! So we're just waiting to be turned on. We're waiting to be connected to the water mains, but basically this will future-proof grazing. At the moment we have to bring on big bowsers to keep the sheep going, and obviously that's not ideal. So with the money from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, we've been able to put in 6 new troughs and lay all the pipe work, and then hopefully sheep, cows, whatever we might have in the future grazing on Green Farm will be able to do so.
And also watering fruit trees.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So just waiting on the last
Oh yeah, see
and
the
pieces.
main's been put in.
Yeah. We were very lucky with that actually. It was well, obviously it's just been dry for months on end, but tracking across Green Farm with the big machinery to put things like troughs and pipes in, it just wouldn't have been possible if we'd have had even a bit of rain. So yeah, the drought has been good for some things.
So it gets quite boggy then? Yeah,
it does. Yeah. You can see in certain bits of pretty much every field there's a low point where it's either a pond, an old pond, or it's just vegetation. You can see things like meadowsweet and rushes, which are plants that are a little bit more adapted to wet conditions. You can see them coming up, and from that you can kind of get a picture of where the wetter areas might be.
Like this bit just in front of us here?
There seems to be a little bit lower.
A bit of a dip, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's a little bit around here, and then over in that corner you can see a big willow. Yeah. There's a pond just the other side. So looking at the sort of gradient maps for this landscape, you can really see how that changes, because it's relatively flat. So you'd assume that there's not much gradient change, but actually when we flew a drone over at the start of this project and they did a bit of temperature mapping, the kind of warmer colours showed higher ground and the cooler colours, so the blues, showed lower ground, and it really did show this gradual transition between reds to blues, and we're in the blue zone now. So if we want to create any wetland habitats or new ponds on site, doing it round here where it's low lying and naturally gets the water flow off the rest of the land is probably going to be most successful. Yeah. Okay. Marvellous. So we're just going to head over to that. Over that way. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. As soon as I saw the willow over there, I thought, there's got to be water. Yeah. And you said there's just a small pond on the other side. Yeah, just the other side. Yeah. So what I'd like to do with that pond, because it's kind of surrounded by bramble at the moment, and it's quite deep, doesn't really have any margins, doesn't really have different shelves within it. So I'd really love to extend it a little bit and give it shallow margins and shelves, because that's the kind of pond that wildlife will really thrive in. So that's phase 2. Now that the woodland creation's done, we turn our attention to wetland creation. That's usually probably, I'd imagine, is quite a bigger chunk of the project, isn't it, the wetland stuff? Yeah, and it's not something that I've really done before. So I think it can be fairly simplistic, just kind of let someone loose with a digger for a while and just crack on, make me some scrapes and ponds. Or it could be a little bit more considered if we want to link up existing wetland features across the landscape, which we do. Yeah. So it needs a bit of thought. I'll definitely be leaning on experts for it. It'll be exciting. It's got the potential, hasn't it, to be a really diverse landscape again, isn't it? It's another nap and paper mill, isn't it, really? Yeah, absolutely. Kind of getting that way. Oh, we're going to be here. Yeah, we're following the Woodland Trail. Yeah, and it's these kind of landscapes with a bit of everything that build up the most resilience for things like extreme weather events and climate change. It creates connectivity through the landscape, it creates diversity for all those different species, and it means that if they have to move and find a new niche, they should be able to find a new niche because you're providing lots of different opportunities, but with the connectivity they should be able to move, whether they have wings or feet or whether they slither, they should be able to get from A to B safely and find what they need when they get there. Yeah. Amazing. So obviously these hedges are obviously well established and a lot older. Yeah, so these ones we haven't cut now for 3 years, and we haven't laid these either. No. So they've very much been left to their own devices, and you can see within them different species are growing at different rates. So this field maple patch that we're passing now is probably the tallest in the whole hedge, and then we're coming up to what have we got? Some elm, I think, and then the big willow pollard, and so all these different levels, and it's sort of bulking out. We haven't cut the bases either, so lots of new suckers and other plants that are just making the hedge even wider. This bit's where our new water pipe has gone through. Okay. Yeah. If we're wondering, there's a bit of a hole. There's a hole there. But that will kind of come back together really quickly.
There's a rhino gone through there.
So this willow is one of the older trees on site. So this one could easily be a couple of centuries old. And you can see it's been pollarded at various points through its history, because you've got this big chunky trunk at the bottom, and then maybe 8 foot up, lots and lots of multi-stemmed branches. So that was maybe pollarded last like 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. So it's due to be pollarded again, so that we just take that weight out of the canopy and reset, and it will have enough energy in that big old trunk to start growing new branches again. And so the cycle continues. And that would have been really a useful timber resource in the past. So it would be nice to use that again for some things. I have to put my thinking cap on, thinking of creative ways to use that timber.
Well, you've got hurdles, haven't you? They'll come out of willow.
Yes, yeah.
It's really straight, so...
It's really straight.
Yeah. So you've got hurdles out of it, and then the bigger stuff, I think you can use for posts, can't you?
Yeah, you
It
can.
lasts a long time, so...
Yeah.
Careful with willow because you think it's dry and then it just regrows.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could have a living fence, so that could be quite cool.
I do like the living archways. I think I'm quite a fan of that.
Yeah,
no, they're
willow
brilliant.
tunnels. Yeah.
It's lovely when you see them and you think, well, that was just something that's been plucked off a tree and then pushed into the ground and away it's gone again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although they do like a lot of water. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I tried to grow a willow fence and it sort of worked for a while, and then I forgot to water it and then it dried out.
Yeah.
But it was, you can see all the marsh plants here, can't you?
Yeah. So in the winter, this is pretty much just surface water all the way around here. So again, if we fancied doing some wetland, I think this field would be up there
Prime
in terms
choice.
of priorities.
Yeah.
And we're following this crack. So this is where our new water pipes are. So they were mole ploughed in so that we didn't have to do any trenches and sort of disturb loads of soil and things like that. So there's this little tunnel about 6 feet down with a new pipe in, and then you just run your tractor wheel over the fissure that you've created and it sort of closes in.
Closes it back up again.
Yeah. Or it would do if it hasn't been so dry.
Yeah.
As soon as that gets some rain, it will close in quite nicely. But it's a really effective method, and it meant that we could put all the pipes in. And it was about 1,200 metres of new pipe.
Wow.
We could do all of that in one day, and not releasing any kind of soil carbon and all that kind of thing. So
Sustainability. We like that.
Yeah. So this is the final field at Green Farm, and this one also might transition to something a bit more diverse in future years. So we're still just planning what we might do with this one and the one we've just come out of, but probably some kind of giant woodland glade with lots of scrub pockets and lots of wetland features, and again just trying to build in that diversity.
See again with the way the land is and the way it dips.
Yeah, so
you see it's undulating all the time, isn't it?
That's right. And in front of us is a ditch, and this particular section flows into the pond, but it stops in front of us. But if you look in the landscape, there's a sort of ghost ditch that carries on all the way round and would have once gone back into Monkwood. So it might be nice to reconnect those. We'd have to have a little bridge across it, so we'll have to think about that. But all these features that were once lost, we now have the opportunity to put them back again.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so really exciting about this project. Every field, more or less, was a blank canvas, and the opportunity to be able to research it and really consider it in a kind of historical context, ecological context, future context. What's best for this particular bit, and bring it all together, and then start it off. It has been really exciting over the last couple of years, and continues to be. I mean, this doesn't stop. This project, the vision I had was sort of a 300-year-old vision. It will take that long for the wood pasture to become proper, in inverted commas. Obviously we won't be here to see it, but just to be able to get it started and sort of help it on its way, I think that's rewarding enough.
Yeah. You did an amazing job.
Thank you. Well, it's not just me. We've been helped by so many people over the lifetime of this project. I think it's got to be at least 300 different people that have helped us to kickstart this vision. And I think that's one of the things that's been so inspiring about it. You don't necessarily need fancy equipment. You don't really need expert knowledge. You just need people who want to make a difference, and they're happy to get stuck in, and you can create something amazing in such a short time.
Yeah, so the site really has only been going, 3 years?
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
So you've already made a massive impact on it in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean about the ditch. You can see it curving round, yeah. Oh wow.
It's in the winter, particularly in sort of February time, when the light hits it at a certain angle, you can really start to see all these historic lumps and bumps in the landscape, and start to read it, start to understand what once was there, what's been lost, what we could put back in.
So are you going to leave the fencing in to the wood, or are you going to...
Yeah, for now.
For
now we are, So this will have some grazing this autumn, and moving forwards, if we'd like to create some kind of mosaic of scrub and wetland and long grasses in this field, that will probably be managed through grazing. So at the moment there's no grazing in the wood itself, so we need something to stop the animals wandering
in and out. Again, it's a sizable field, isn't it, really? I mean, there's a lot of space here. It's much bigger than I thought it was going to be, let's put it that way.
It doesn't look much on a map, but I think because it's quite an open landscape, so you can see beyond the boundaries of Green Farm, and you've taken other bits of woodland and hedges, and you can really start to see how Monkwood is sort of expanding itself across the landscape into Green Farm and beyond, which is exactly what we wanted.
But it's that connectivity, isn't it? It's standing there and looking up the hill, I can see all the various clumps of trees everywhere, and you just think, well, that's ideal, isn't it? That's what you want.
Exactly.
Little pockets.
Exactly, little stepping stones across the landscape.
It's lovely. It's really lovely.
Yeah, and it's great that we're now moving into a monitoring phase, so we're really starting to understand how our actions are starting to benefit wildlife, and I'm really surprised actually by some of the results, because I was sort of thinking, it's going to take a bit longer to start to see some benefits, but even in the 2 years of the project, we've had 120% increase in general bird abundance across the entire site. So that's not necessarily new species, although we have seen new species like our stonechats. But this is generally birds that were here have now boosted themselves by over 100%.
Wow.
And that's just due to sort of slightly different management practices and laying hedges rather than flailing them, leaving long areas of long grass, and starting to create lots of other bits and pieces. It's wonderful to be able to see the wildlife responding.
Yeah.
You hope that they would, but you don't know that until you get some data.
So there's the constant monitoring then, is it volunteers that are involved in that as well, in that process?
It's a mixture of all sorts actually. We're heading for this style.
Right.
So we have our volunteers monitoring butterfly numbers. We've had staff, including me, doing bird surveys, and our volunteers do our dormouse footprint tunnels. So we're still waiting for our first dormouse in the hedgerow network across Green Farm. We know they're in Monkwood, so we're just waiting to see whether they have expanded themselves onto Green Farm just yet. And then we have volunteers to do lots of botanical surveys, contractors that fly drones over for us, and contractors who have done bat handling, I suppose. It's not so much bat surveys, but they've done trapping in the woodland itself, using lots of licensed people and really, really fine nets and a sort of acoustic lure to bring bats in, a bit like bird ringing. And through that we've found a couple of new species for Monkwood, which is really exciting and wouldn't be possible without this kind of project focus and the funding that comes with it. So yeah, it's a kind of mixture of experts, whether they be paid people or volunteers. Or,
yeah,
staff.
Amazing. And now we've got a bridge to go over.
Yeah.
So this is obviously an important part of the project then, the boundary between the farm and the wood at the moment.
Yeah, and I would love in future to see this boundary blurred.
Yes.
So you can't tell the difference between woodland edge and meadow. It's just a really nice gradation of scrub, which again is best for wildlife. We know that 90% of our woodland wildlife, so that's species that are specifically adapted to living in woodlands, thrive on the first 10% of a woodland. So that's the edge, it's the habitat between a track sort of and the verges. It's wherever woodland meets open habitat basically. And so the more of those edges that we can build into a woodland, whether it is where woodland meets meadow or woodland meets car park or whatever, then the more our woodland wildlife will be able to use those habitats.
Yeah.
So yeah, and here obviously having the meadows on the other side that we now own, that edge can be really big. It doesn't have to be sort of 2 metres, it could be 20 metres. And that for me is really exciting. And at the moment I don't have any plans to plant those edges. We have all the species here in the wood and they're just ready to, under their own steam, just expand that way. So we'll watch and wait. But that will be really good. I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll see lots of climbing species, like we've got honeysuckle in here, got wild clematis. Hopefully those will start kind of climbing amongst all the new scrubby edges, and in turn provide amazing habitat for things like dormice.
So the dormice, they tend to be more in the heart of the woodland, do they?
They are really, really spread out actually. So it's basically wherever the habitat's good for them, which can be along some of the edges. It can be in pockets of the wood that have been they've had a bit of tree work in the last sort of 10 years or so. And I think it's basically dormice have to be able to move around to have access to like a year-round larder. So in the spring they'll be eating things like caterpillars, so they need to be able to get to the tops of trees. In the summer they move on to other inverts, and sort of tree flowers for the nectar and things like that. And then come the autumn they'll come down a little bit lower to the ground to have the berries and nuts. And so they will go wherever they need to go to find those foraging opportunities. And hopefully with the woodland work that we do in Monkwood, whether that's coppicing or thinning or whatever it might be, we're creating those opportunities right the way through the wood. I've been caught by a bramble. And hopefully among those different opportunities will be connecting corridors so that the dormice can just move themselves to wherever they need to be, and there will always be this continuous cycle of different types of habitat that are growing and being recreated for them right through sort of 60 hectares of woodland and now green farm.
Yeah. Just point so you can see it.
Yeah.
So are there glowworms in Monkwood?
Yes.
There are?
Yeah, I see the larvae much more than I see the adults, mostly because I'm not here at night.
No, that's committed if you were.
Yeah. So most of the time it's usually sort of April, May, and we see the larvae quite often just on the paths. We get sent in photos from people saying, oh, this is a really cool kind of caterpillar, what is it? And it's actually a glowworm larvae.
Wow.
So that's how we know they're still here. Not so much seeing the adults, but
just
the larvae.
The larvae around.
Yeah.
Okay, and here we are, back at the car park. That was a lovely loop. It's really interesting. Of the whole thing.
Yeah, sure. So the Trust bought Monkwood in 1986, so we've owned it for nigh on 40 years or so, and it's a semi-natural ancient woodland, which means that it has had some different history of kind of management practices, different owners in the past, but at its heart it's still an ancient woodland, and we can see just by the types of trees and shrubs and ground plants that are here in the wood still that it's been woodland for a very, very long time. It was mentioned in the Domesday Book, so we know for at least 1,000 years it's been a woodland. And before that, there are references in kind of Anglo-Saxon charters and stuff to Monkwood. We know that by that stage, this going back maybe 1,500 years ago, it was part of the Wye Forest. And when you get back that far, it's a reasonable assumption, I think, to make that it's probably been woodland since the last ice age. So very ancient woodland, and when we got the opportunity to buy Green Farm in 2019, it was the opportunity not just to make Green Farm better for wildlife, but also to expand Monkwood for the first time in centuries, and being able to kind of encourage all of the species that are found here, and some of them are really rare, to be able to encourage them out into the wider landscape was really, really exciting. In some sections we wanted to turn the clock back and put habitats back in that were once here. So things like hedges that were lost at the turn of the century around the 1900s, to be able to replant those with our school groups and sort of leave a future legacy was really cool. And re-put, if that makes sense, wood pasture and orchards back in that were once lost. And to be able to see our species that are so precious to us in Monkwood, like wood white butterflies, for example, to be able to see them start to do what we wanted, which is expand into Green Farm and the landscape beyond, is just wonderful. That's what you hope for as a conservationist. You don't always get that. So projects like this are absolutely key. And we wanted to not just do the kind of practical conservation element of this, but to also bring the local community with us and really get them invested in what we're trying to do, because it's their landscape as well, after all. And so to see such an encouraging sort of uptake from locals, particularly school children, has been amazing, I think. It's great to kind of think that those are our future reserves officers like me, future engagement officers like Laura, and they will carry on the baton, when we've finished, just because of the fact they planted a tree when they were 8. That's how I got involved with nature. So it's lovely to have that angle, as well as the kind of conservation element of it as well. So it's been a great project. It's been going since 2019. Obviously we had a bit of COVID in the way. Brexit was happening back then. It feels like years ago. But it gave us the time to really understand the landscape. So doing lots of archaeological surveys, lots of historical context, and then really build up to a plan that captured what the landscape once was, how it is now, how valuable it is for wildlife, and then what it could be in the future with all the challenges that might come from the future, so things like climate change. And trying to marry all of that together into a vision, which we've now been delivering for the last 2 years, was the aim. I think we haven't quite finished. There's always things that will be continuing and ongoing, but we've come to the end of the delivery phase now, and we're moving into more of the monitoring, and just sitting back and watching it grow.
Yeah, well, I guess just to really second what Dom said about the legacy of the project, like really radiating beyond the reserve as well. Like, not only is there the legacy of the trees that will become woodland, and all of the habitat that's been created here, but it's also all of the community green spaces that have been sort of brought with us along the sort of process of doing the project. So yeah, and all of the skills that have been gained by volunteers and local community members and pupils, and hopefully experiences that they will like carry through with them into the future, and hopefully we've been able to like instill a sense of excitement about protecting nature, and also obviously we're working on such a big scale here, but I think we've really tried to infuse a sense of, you know, even if you're planting you know, some bulbs or wildflowers or a hedgerow in your local space, which we have been doing with community groups, you know, that is also really important too, and that also contributes to this whole idea of connectivity that we're talking about here, because we own this site, but we're surrounded by a community of people that also are able to you know, expand the network that we're trying to create. So it's been really great to meet the community and really feel their excitement about this too.
Well, lovely. Thank you very much for my guided tour. It was really, really interesting, and I've certainly learned a lot, and hopefully the listeners will too. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I just wanted to pause and say a huge thank you to Dom and Laura. They took me on a fantastic guided walk around Green Farm. I really enjoyed exploring the site with both of them and just sort of getting a deeper sense of just how special this place is. And while we're talking about Green Farm, a big thanks also needs to go out to the Esmée Fairbairn Foundation. They were the ones who initially purchased the site on behalf of the Trust through their Loans for Land Purchase scheme, which really set everything in motion. And then in November 2022, when the Trust was finally able to complete the purchase of the site, that only actually came about because of the generosity of so many people, from members of the Trust, public donations, and some incredible support from funders. A big thanks to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, Severn Waste Services, plus generous contributions from the Banister Charitable Trust, 3dtotal.com and the LG Harris Charitable Trust as well. All of them together made this possible and secured Green Farm for wildlife and for us all to enjoy. That brings us to the end of this episode of Wild Worcestershire. For me, it's been a real pleasure exploring Green Farm with you, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the story of this very special place. We'll be back in November with our next episode, where I'll be taking a trip to the heart of Worcestershire College to discover more about conservation in urban spaces, and also learning about how nature thrives even in the busiest of environments. And if today's episode has sparked your interest and you'd like to find out more about the work of Worcestershire Wildlife Trust, you can follow the link in the description below. There you'll find details on how to get involved, whether that's through volunteering your time or perhaps supporting us with a donation. And really, that's it from me. I've been your host, Lee Robinson. A big thank you for listening, and until next time, do take care and keep an eye out for the wild around you.